Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by and I hope you're doing well. As some of you may have noticed or may not have noticed, I have not uploaded to this channel in about 4 months now. The reason being is that I've been completing my grade 12 year of high school as well as starting a new job in the military. And this of course eats into one's hobby time, which unfortunately means that video progress has been slow. Which is a real shame, considering that the last video I uploaded you guys really seemed to enjoy, and now I fear that the algorithm will have rolled back all my progress to square zero. But, oh well, I basically have all the time in the world to make some fun videos for y'all. So make sure to stay tuned for some fun Warhammer, battletech, and hopefully some Trench Crusade coming out real soon. But for the time being, I'm just going to make a couple chill painting videos to get my steam back up, and then we'll start with the real meat and potatoes of what this channel is supposed to be. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the video. The model we are painting up today is a Canadian Leopard 2A4 main battle tank. This model is sourced from the Government of Canada website, and the quality is middling to say the least, more on that later. But if you want to print this model for yourself, link is in the description. To get started, I expertly flipped my can of primer. Now that the model is prime, I noticed a few more of the weird model defects that the model had, most notably of which being that the hatches were pretty poorly modeled and had a very thin sheet over a cavity that caused them to snap off while I was removing the supports. But oh well, it is fine enough as a proof of concept and a fun little project. So now I will airbrush the whole model a nice NATO green in compliance with how most Canadian vehicles are. The color I am using is Tamiya's NATO Green, and while the paint itself is very good, this pot that I have here I had not opened in about 6 months at the time. So, after it giving me a lot of grief for quite a bit, I eventually admitted defeat and just opened up my second pot that I had, which, to be honest, I don't know why I didn't start with that. An incredibly important part of painting any miniature really is making sure that your base color is a nice gradient. And in this case, I'm using some of Vallejo's medium olive paint. Having a gradient as your base color, it's hard to put your finger on, but it just makes the model look more lively and better overall. As you can see, the tank already looks much better for it now that it has a little bit of color variation on it. Something about giving the illusion of light and then maybe washed out paint from hours in the sun, I don't know. But in any case, now it's time to paint up the tracks a nice black. To those wondering why I'm using a craft black instead of an actual model paint for this, I find that this craft paint is actually a lot better and has much better coverage than any other craft black I use. It's funny, black would seemingly be one of the more easy colors to nail down when it comes to model paint, but I haven't found one that just has the same coverage and, I guess, vibrant blackness that this paint does. It was around this point during the painting of the tracks that I realized I think I was messing them up. My reference images were kind of trash, but it looked like the tracks were rubber pads over a metal rusty track. So to make sure, I called my brother who works in the army and he fixes the radios and tanks, so I called him up during work hours, but he had some spare time, so he responded and he gave me a very good description that yes, in fact they were rubber pads over a metal track. So what I did is I took some earth tones and some rust paint, thinned it down to a wash, a very thin wash at that, and then I basically just glazed that over the track and then wiped off the parts that were supposed to be rubber with a paper towel. While I paint virtually all of my models purely for the fun of it, this one does actually have a bit of a deeper meaning behind it. My boss wants me to paint up a model so that he can show it to higher leadership and hopefully get these displayed around my reserve unit. And I don't know about you, but I think it would be really cool to have some of these bad boys poking around, so I hope I do a good enough job for that. Now that the tracks are painted, it's time to dust up this tank. I'm trying to make a diorama of my home province of Alberta, and Alberta is a very dusty place. So let's get to it. After the pigments were applied, I set about painting on the standard insignia for Canadian armoured vehicles, which happens to be a dark Canadian maple leaf on the side of the turret. And for anyone who's ever drawn a Canadian maple leaf, you'll know that they're fairly difficult to do, although that may have just been a skill issue for me in the 2nd grade. But anyway, especially considering how small this was, I am very proud of the result, and I think it reads very nicely as a Canadian maple leaf. Now that the tank is done, it is time to make a basic little diorama base. To do this, I'm going to cut out a piece of foam and then begin sketching out where I want my tank to go, where I want the ditch to be, and where I want to place a power line that I only realized much later was comically oversized for this scale. As a base layer for what would eventually be mud and dirt and grass, I will start off with just a basic layer of brown craft paint mixed with Mod Podge. I know that the power line will appear multiple times throughout, however, since I ended up removing it later, we're just going to ignore it for now. To provide a little bit more texture to the diorama, and while the Mod Podge is still wet, I apply a layer of railroad ballast. Then, to form my dirt road, I will use some of this lovely Vallejo Diorama Effects basing paste. I will just apply it in a line where I want my road to be, and then use a glue tube as a makeshift spatula to push around the paste and form some nice divots and ruts and other such road-like features, before finally using the model itself to press into the mud to leave some nice tracks behind it, and also to use this as the glue that will hold the model to the base. Well, I don't think that's a half bad start at all. Now, in order to add some actual life to this diorama, I will apply a generous coat of this brown craft paint, but not before I biff it onto my desk. Now, in order to add some actual texture to that brown paint, I'm going to use more dusty dry pigments to add a little bit of that characteristic Albertan dust to the base. After that, I take this as a good opportunity to give a nice black rim to the base itself. Spinny, 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 spinny. As beautifully earthy as this base is, it's time to get some actual nice green grass on there. So, using some clear Elmer's glue and a popsicle stick, I'm going to spread a generous helping of glue where I want the tuft to sit. And then, after the glue is applied, I'm going to basically sloppily just drop flock on top of it, using a paper towel underneath to save any spillover, of course. One final touch, I use some of Vallejo's still water effects to add a little bit of mud at the bottom of the stitch. In hindsight, I should have mixed it with a little bit of brown paint or something to give it a little bit more of that dirty ditch water feel. It was a bit clear, but in the end, I don't think it made too much of a difference, and I'm happy with the result. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll make sure to respond to anything in the comment section down below. Anyway, this has been Semi-Historical Wargaming, and I hope to see you in the next one. See ya!